Okay, today we're going to read one small passage from the Rebbe's commentary to the Haggadah, colloquially referred to as the Rebbe's Haggadah. So just before we begin, just a little bit of halachic historical background, just to understand the context of the Rebbe's Haggadah, so help us understand what the Rebbe is doing and what he's commenting on. So we back up to the late 1700s, mid-late 1700s. The Alter Rebbe, founder of Chabad, wrote a code of Jewish law, a Shulchan Aruch. Now the code of Jewish law, his code of Jewish law I should say, is very elaborate. It's very, it's lucid, but it's very elaborate. It's
not the same as Yosef Karo?
No. It's written 200 years later. Okay, so since you asked, back up a little bit more. Yosef Karo, Rabbi Yosef Karo in the 1500s writes a code in Tzfas. He's 4 years old at the time of the expulsion. He's born in Spain. He's 4 years old or 5 years old at the time of the expulsion in 1492. So in the early 1500s, he writes a code of Jewish law in Tzfas. His code is very concise, actually, because he has a separate book called Bet Yosef, in which he elaborates and gives the background of his conclusions. But his code is actually very concise. Okay?
So why did the Rebbe have to write?
Very good question. So I have to write another one. For two reasons. A, at the time when he wrote his code, it was very widely received because it's the first time it was very, very concise. It was so concise that he actually, in his introduction, he writes that he is expecting the reader to review it every 30 days, to review the entire code. So that way you're familiar with it. But it's only once you learn the background in his book called the Bet Yosef where he gives the background as to how he came to his conclusions. Okay? So, at the time, his code is very much Sephardi biased. He is a Sephardi, and he's working with Sephardi tradition. Rambam, Rif, even the Rosh, others, without getting into too much background. So at the same time of the publication of his code, which was very widely received, in Poland, there was a Jew named Rabbi Moshe Isserles, great Talmudic scholar, halachist, who reads the code and says, this is fantastic, but it's missing Ashkenazi custom. And where there's a variant between Ashkenazi and Sephardic ruling. So he decided, in his humility, instead of publishing a counter code, he wrote glosses to the code. So anytime you buy a code of Jewish law today, you'll have the text of the code from Rabbi Cairo, and then you'll have glosses in like a subtext, or an italic text from Rabbi Moshe Isserles, known as Ramah, Reish Mem Aleph, Rabbi Moshe Isserles. So you have already in the page Ashkenazi Sephardi, wherever there's a divergence. So this is in the mid-1500s. And then it starts to be picked up by scholars, and scholars look at it and they say, well, I would actually come to a different conclusion. Very nice that Rabbi Cairo came to this conclusion, and Rabbi Isserles came to this conclusion, but I would have come to a different one. And here's my reason, here's my proof, here's my this, here's my that. So now, when you buy a code, it looks, this is Rabbi Cairo's code, it looks like this. Where in the center you have Rabbi Cairo's work. The subtext there that's in the italics, that's Rabbi Moshe Isserles the Ramah. And then on the side you have years of commentaries afterwards saying, well, I disagree with this case, you missed that issue, etc., etc. So 200 years later comes the Alter Rebbe and writes an updated code. Every couple of 100 years this happens in Jewish law, where an updated code is done. If you want to back up before Rebbe Yosef Karo, you have the Torah. Before the Torah, you have Rambam. Before Rambam, you had just constantly re-updated codes. And until today, it's still happening. People, hence the library, and many others like it.
Is like the Shulchan Aruch?
Yeah, Shulchan Aruch is code. The word Shulchan Aruch literally means, like near a Seder table, you have Shulchan Aruch as one of the steps. Shulchan Aruch literally means set table. And the idea is, you don't have to go search through the whole Talmud to find the law. It's a set table. It's all right here for you. That's why it's called Shulchan Aruch, a set table. But it's a code. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe writes a code. Unlike Rabbi Yosef Karo, who is very brief in his code, very concise, and the background he gives in another book called the Bet Yosef, where he gives the background to why he came to his conclusions, the code of the Alter Rebbe itself is elongated. It itself goes through multiple details and multiple opinions and arguments and counter-arguments. So, like I don't remember where I heard this from, an older chassid who once said, learning the Alter Rebbe's Code of Jewish Law is very humbling. Because you read 4, 5, 6 paragraphs, you think you have it clear. There's 1, 2, 3 opinions, and we follow opinion 1 under such circumstances, opinion 2 under such circumstances, everything's clear, beautiful. And then comes like the 6th or 7th paragraph and says, and all of this is only if, but if this, then a whole new other thing happens. That's how his code works. So it's very elaborate, and very detailed, and very involved. Okay, which means that in order to make a ruling from it, you have to learn the entire thing, be well versed in it, and understand it very deeply. Not that it's a complicated read. It's not a complicated read. You can pick up the English version and read it on your own. It's very lucid. It's very easy language, not complicated language. Nonetheless, it's involved. You can go for 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs on one opinion and then say, well, it's a different opinion. And then 3 paragraphs later, okay. Now, in addition to writing a code, the Alter Rebbe published a siddur. Now, what does it mean to publish a siddur? So, if you pick up any siddur that you have today, an Art Scroll siddur, a Petach Eliyahu siddur, Chabad Kahat siddur, whatever siddur you're picking up, you're going to have 2 things in this siddur. A, you're going to have the text itself of the liturgy of what you're supposed to say, and they can be very in text. So when Art Scroll publishes a siddur, they're making a rabbinic judgment call that they're picking a certain text for the siddur. They're putting Baruch Amar at the 3rd paragraph in the prayer, not the 1st paragraph in the prayer, whatever. They're putting this word, not that word. Okay, that's number 1. They're choosing which text to publish, which the Alter Rebbe did. He collected something like 70 different versions of the siddur, and he came with his version of what to say. Okay, that's number 1, text of the siddur. Number 2, every siddur you pick up has instructions also. Stand here, sit here, bow here, and so on. Right? So the siddur also includes halacha. Halacha is pertaining to your prayers. Stand, sit, bang your heart here, bow down here, and so on. Yeah. Now, a good siddur is not just for your daily prayer. A proper siddur that a scholar is publishing is going to be a year-round siddur, which includes your machzor for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and your Haggadah. So any good siddur of the old day that was published by some scholar who did some research into what he thinks is the proper text and what he thinks is the proper way to behave throughout the siddur is going to include a Haggadah in there, and he's going to include a machzor in there, and so on. Okay, so now once you come to, let's say, the machzor, the publisher of the siddur has to choose which piyutim, which poems go in there or not. Right? Look, there's tons of piyutim, there's tons of poems you can throw into your machzor. Which ones do you choose? And just so you know, Chabad is the absolute smallest of them all. The absolute shortest siddur, period. Because the Alter Rebbe wanted to make it as close as possible to what's required without any bells and whistles. So he cut out a lot of the piyutim that are done either in Satmar, which starts at 6 in the morning and goes till 2 in the afternoon on Rosh Hashanah, or the Sephardim, which also start from 6 in the morning and go to 2 in the afternoon. And the Chabad, we start at 9:30 and we're done by 1, even with the rabbi's sermon, right? So it's the shortest siddur because they cut out a lot of the Alter Rebbe cut out a lot of the piyutim and stuck to the bare bones of what he felt is most required. So that's 1, you're choosing the text. But then there's also instructions. When to blow the shofar, how to blow the shofar, and so on. Because that's part of your service. The same thing needs to be at the Seder night. A good siddur published by some scholar will include what to do on the Seder night, what to say in the Seder night. Which again, first of all, the Alter Rebbe, publishing the siddur is going to choose which particular text to read. Do you say halach manya, heilach manya, keheilach manya? Different little things like that. As well as maybe the order. Sometimes the orders are slightly different. Again, piyutim. Do you have all the songs at the end of the Seder? None of the songs at the end of the Seder? Some of the songs, and so on. And included in that will be instructions. Uncover your matzah here, cover your matzah here, pick up your cup here, stand here, sit here, eat so much, and so on. Okay? So the Seder itself, or the Haggadah section of the Siddur, includes instructions on how to behave at your Seder. And there too, you'll find variance between one Haggadah and another. Pick up the kaira, walk around the table and bang people on the head, or just uncover the matzah. I don't know. There's different, all kinds of different variants. Okay. So now comes, that's all in the late 1700s. This code is published, it's very elaborate, and then the Siddur is published. Now a Siddur is not going to be elaborate. A Siddur is not going to give you 10 opinions of how you do the Seder. The code will. The Siddur is going to give you just straightforward, do, don't. much more concise. The instructions in the Siddur are much more concise than they are in the code. In fact, sometimes in the Siddur, he comes to a different conclusion than the code. Because in the code, as I mentioned before, he's collecting the last 200 years of opinions. In the Siddur, he's not collecting it, he's just telling you what he thinks you should do. So sometimes in the Siddur, it'll be different than the code, actually, interestingly enough. There are those communities that follow the code, other Hasidic communities, very specifically, and others. And the Chabad, we follow the Siddur. There's ever a variant between the Siddur and the code. Okay, so all that's in the 1700s. Clear so far? Mm-hmm. All right. Now we fast forward to 1946. The previous Rebbe tells his son-in-law, who would later become the Rebbe, I want you to publish a commentary on the Haggadah. So he does. Now, which Haggadah is the Rebbe going to comment on? On the Alter Rebbe Siddur. Right? So the Rebbe will comment not just on a Haggadah anywhere. He's specifically taking the Haggadah section of the Alter Rebbe Siddur and commenting on that. So he's going to comment on the text itself. And he's also going to comment on the instructions that the Alter Rebbe gives in his Siddur throughout the Haggadah. He's also going to comment on that. Clear? Okay. So the commentary, as the Rebbe called it, is, quote, a collection, a Haggadah Shal Pesach, with a collection of a collection of customs and reasons. The Rebbe calls himself a collector. But as you unpack the Rebbe's Haggadah, you find that it's much more than just a collection. The way the Rebbe collects and the way the Rebbe frames the collection tells you a lot about how the Rebbe is thinking about the Haggadah. And, unlike the Rebbe's speech, which was very lucid, the Rebbe can talk about one subject for 45 minutes straight, and explain it from this angle, and explain it from that angle, and reword it, and so on. And his writing is extremely concise and extremely precise. So in 4 or 5 lines, the Rebbe could be telling you something that would take an hour to share in the Rebbe's Haggadah. So it's really a work of art that requires lots of study, and there's literally hundreds of books written on the Rebbe's commentary on the Haggadah. The Rebbe's commentary itself is maybe 50 pages. It's very small. 50, 60 pages. But that has spawned hundreds and hundreds of pages. Okay. So all this is important to understand because the first text we're about to read here in English is the instruction in the Alter Rebbe Siddur. And then the second paragraph is there was commentary on that instruction. Clear? Mm-hmm. Okay, so which point of the Seder are we at? We're at the point of the Seder where it's an exciting part of the Seder because there's a little activity. You need to pour some wine out of your cup. Or dip wine out of your cup. We'll talk about that in a minute. We do that at one point, but it's really 3 different sections that we do it in. First, we do it when we say blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. Dam va'esh, v'simres ashon. We pour out wine. And then we read the 10 plagues. We pour out wine by each of the 10 plagues. And then Rabbi Yehuda, Yenosim Dem Simonim, Rabbi Yehuda would give a acronym to the 10 plagues, Tetzach, Adash, Ba'achav, and we pour it again there too. Total of 16 different times we pour out. 10 plagues, 3 before the plagues, 3 after the plagues. Total 16. So here's the instruction that comes at the point of the first pouring, before blood, fire, and pillars of smoke.
Everybody does 16 pourings.
Or dippings.
Or dippings.
Yeah. I don't think, maybe the others do more, I don't know.
Okay.
Certainly a minimum of
I don't
16.
remember when it says Dam, Ash, and Timot Hashan.
You do pour out, yes. Everybody does.
You pour it?
Everybody does, yeah, absolutely. Sorry?
No, I don't remember that one either. I remember the others, but I didn't remember.
Have a look in your Haggadah, I'm pretty sure it's there too.
3, and then you do 10, and then you do another 3.
Correct.
But
I
think
know I
Chabad
do
does it
10
with
and
finger.
3.
We don't do it with the finger, we'll get into that.
So we just pour.
We're going to get into exactly that. That's what we're about to get into. All right. So here is the Alter Rebbe's instruction before this section of blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. And this is a translation, thank you to Kahat. When saying the following words, blood and fire and pillars of smoke, spill 3 times from the wine in the cup. Okay, this is straightforward instruction. Then it continues. Do not remove wine by dipping in a finger, but by spilling from the cup itself. So this is instruction number 1. He's telling you, there are other customs where they dip the finger, right? They put their finger into the cup, and they dip it in, they remove wine by doing that. It says the Alter Rebbe, don't do that. That's not our custom. Specifically, I want you to pour. Instruction 1. Instruction 2. And do so into a broken dish. That's what we do. You pour it into a broken dish. It's a Chabad custom.
Yeah, the broken dish.
Again, I give this whole background so you should understand because... Sorry?
How could you pour in a broken dish?
So you chip.
Oh,
a little dish that's chipped. So when I gave this class the other day, someone told me that what they do is they buy a stack of plastic cups, plastic bowls, cut them at the corner and hand them out so somebody has a broken bowl, which is a great idea. We should do it this year. Saves time going around with a broken bowl, pouring everybody's wine in. It takes time. Okay.
You crack the dish with what?
Yeah. Plastic one. Take it. It's a great idea. Buy plastic and snip the what's the word? Like the ledge over around the side.
Yeah, that's what we do.
There you go. Like the lip of the bowl. Cut it, and then that's a broken dish.
Soft plastic.
Yeah.
Like disposable.
And it's,
So each person does it at the Seder table because for us it's only
yeah. So okay. It's
eating and then you put it under the table.
Yeah, I don't wanna go-
You don't see it, but
yeah.
like
I don't want to go down all the custom rabbit holes because we'd be forever. But yes, as a rule, Sephardim in general do everything with one person, like Kiddush, and Ashkenazim do each person does Kiddush, for example. But irrelevant. Let's say it's just one person. It's not the point. We're not going down this rabbit hole right now. We're just making the point of happening
rabbit
here.
hole will never end.
Exactly. So we're staying here, which is why I gave this introduction to say that every Haggadah has its own instructions. So we're talking about this specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. So instruction number 1, we're told, is don't dip, pour. Instruction 2, pour into a broken dish. Skip the parentheses. Okay? Skip the parentheses. We're going to come back to that in a second. All right? So instruction 1, pour, don't dip. Instruction 2, into a broken bowl. Then comes the next. Now, the next paragraph comes before the 10 plagues. This paragraph instruction was before blood, fire, and pillar of smoke. And now comes the instruction before the 10 plagues, which reads, when saying the 10 plagues, spill from the cup itself 10 times, as stated above. All right? So do the same thing. Spill, don't dip. Skip the parentheses. We'll come back to it. Says the Rebbe. The wine remaining in the cup, skip the parentheses, is not to be spilled. So when you're done dipping, when you're done pouring out, the rest of the cup shouldn't be emptied. But other wine is added to refill the cup. Okay, so 3 instructions. Dip, pour, don't dip. Into a broken cup. Don't empty it out, refill it. In all 3 of these regards, others have different customs. Others dip, don't pour. Others do not pour into a broken dish. They put it under the table, or sometimes they do other things. People pour whatever, other customs. And number 3, there are people who specifically empty the cup out when they're done and refill it with fresh wine. Says the Alter Rebbe on all accounts, no. Pour, don't dip, broken cup, and don't empty your cup out when you're done, just refill it. Okay? Why is that? So now let's look at the parentheses, and we're going to get a 4th instruction. We clear so far? Just on the instruction point? We don't know why yet. We're going to get there.
We're clear, but you know what? Like the fact that there's a revision every, I don't know how many hundreds of years or whatever, do the Rabbanim think that it's going to confuse rather than enhance?
Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's not a revision A, because these aren't halacha, these are customs. And you'll see each custom has its pluses and its minuses and its reasons. Number 1. Number 2, it doesn't confuse it, or at least not from my perspective. It creates the tapestry of Jewish color, where some people do it this way and some people do it that way. And we share and we explore and we talk about where it comes from and why we got there. Now, it's sitting I'm doing now, where I'm going to give an explanation for why this is the Chabad custom. Someone else can do to give someone else can do to explain the other custom, and they're both perfectly valid. Okay, so this is the custom. 3 things: pour, don't dip; broken cup; refill, don't empty it out. Yeah. Yep. And on all 3 accounts, other people do other customs. Now let's look at the parentheses, because here's going to be the 4th instruction, which is the strangest of them all. We're going to unpack that one, and that's going to help us understand the other 3 instructions, and why Chabad does it this way specifically. So let's look in the parentheses. Have in mind, this is the Alter Rebbe speaking, have in mind that the cup symbolizes the aspect of Malchut, which contains an aspect of anger and indignation. By means of our faculty of Bina, understanding, we pour out the aspect of anger and indignation by spilling from the wine into a broken dish, which represents Klippa, namely, that which is called accursed, the principle of evil. Can anybody understand that? No. No? Okay, good. We'll explain it. But what do we have? What are you telling us? He's telling me like this. I want you to think that the cup is Malchut. It has anger. You got to pour the anger out from your cup into a broken dish, which represents negativity. And you're using the power of being understanding to do so. I want you to think that when you're pouring. So it's a 4th instruction now. He's giving us an instruction of intention. Now look at the next paragraph with the parentheses. Again, he says, right when he tells you before the 10 plagues to spill out the same way he told you before, he says, and when spilling, again have in mind what was said above. That your cup is malchut, that has anger, you're using your power of understanding to pour the anger out onto klipa, onto the broken, which is klipa. We're going to explain. We'll explain. Then the Alter Rebbe continues. So now, just a second. This already explains for us why you have to have the broken dish. Because it's klipa. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you're pouring out into the klipa. Great. Then he says, the wine remaining in the cup will have become wine that causes joy, and thus is not to be spilled out, but to be added. Because of our version here, the wine that's left behind of your cup after you pour out is not negative wine, it's positive wine. So don't empty it out, refill it. Whereas in other opinions, you spill it all out. So let's now get to understanding what's happening here.
It sounds like a very spiritual thing.
It does sound spiritual. Why is it
I was going to say, like, this is so Sephardic. I totally relate. Because everything that we always talk about is like, wow, the level of the soul and the...
Very good. So let's unpack this. So let's unpack it. That's the Alter Rebbe's instruction. So we have really 4 instructions now.
You know he was really Sephardic in his roots. That's where all of this going.
Well, certainly the Arizal is going back to Sephardic, right? This is Arizal teachings. Okay, so 4 instructions then. Pour, don't dip, into a broken cup. Have in mind that your cup is malchut, that has anger. You're pouring anger out through bina. Using bina, you're pouring anger out into the klipa, into negativity, which is your broken cup, broken vessel. And therefore, what's left behind is joyous. Refill it, don't empty. That was instruction number 4. So let's unpack this and see what the Rebbe helps, how the Rebbe helps us understand this on a deeper level. Or on a basic level, I should say. So now comes the Rebbe's commentary. I'm sorry I couldn't find the translation, so I'm going to read it and translate it for us. So the first word there is in italics. It says v'yechavin. The italic word is the quote from the Alter Rebbe's instruction. V'yechavin means and you should have in mind. It's the first word of the parenthesis, which we translate as have in mind. V'yechavin, have in mind. Says the Rebbe. Admor, the Rebbe, referring to the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Siddur, Bisiduroi, in his Siddur, Ein Darkoi, it's not his custom, Lavar Mashi Yechavin. It's not his custom to tell us what to think. If you open up a Chabad Siddur, it doesn't tell you at every point what to think. You open up many Sephardic Siddurim that are certainly, if they're Kabbalistically based, will tell you, when you read this name of God, you got to think this level. And when you read that name of God, you got to look that level. Open up some of the bigger Sephardic Siddurim that are Kabbalistically built. You open them up and you'll see in the middle shapes of menorahs with God's name, Yud, the Aleph, the Vav, and the Hey. All that stuff is there because it's a Kabbalistically bent Siddur, and it's telling you which Kabbalistic thoughts to have when you're reading certain paragraphs. The Chabad Siddur, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, even though it is built on Kabbalah, it's built on the Arizal, largely, but the Alter Rebbe wanted to make it accessible to everybody, even the one who's not initiated in Kabbalah, and therefore removed most of the intentions. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, it does not include intentions of what to think. So why is he inserting intentions here? Just tell us what to do. Why is he giving us a whole thing? To think that Malchut is this and that. It's not what he usually does. He doesn't tell us when you break the middle matzah, it represents this, that, or the other. Doesn't say. It just says to break the middle matzah. That's it.
He's telling you, is it possible that he's telling you to raise yourself to a certain level to believe?
If that's the case, then do that throughout. Why here? Why is he adding that here? Why is intention here? He doesn't do so usually. There are other works in which he talks about intentions. He has books of Hasidus that talk about intentions. But his Siddur doesn't have that. His Siddur is meant to be just a user manual. Use your friendly manual for even the uninitiated. And yet here he's telling us to have certain intention. Why? So explains the Rebbe, Masha Be'er Khan, and the reason why here he inserts an intention, literally, it seems to me, says the Rebbe, Shahochrach B'B'Zeh. He was compelled to do so. There's a halachic imperative to have this Kabbalistic intention. What's the halachic imperative? Because our sages of blessed memory have said, quote, you may not make a blessing over a cup that is associated with negativity. We make blessings constantly holding cups at a Brit Milah, at a wedding, at Kiddush, at Havdalah, at benching. It's called Kol Shel Bracha, a cup of blessing. It's a cup over which you recite a blessing. And this is generally our practice. We do so. Whenever we have special occasions, we have a cup of wine with the blessing. But if the cup of wine is associated with negativity, says the Gemara, don't make a blessing on that cup. And therefore continues, so much so says the Rebbe. U'b'sefer Pesach Me'uvin, in a book called Pesach Me'uvin, skip the parentheses, where it gives us a little citation, Kosav, it reads, that one should empty the cup of wine after they've spilt, Hanish, which is left behind, and you're going to rinse out the cup, because this cup that you just spilled out, that you just used to mark the plagues, is a cup of negativity. So don't drink that wine, empty it out, rinse out your cup, refill it. That's what other customs do. Now we understand the other customs. Because they look at this cup of wine and say, well, this cup of wine is now associated with plagues. We shouldn't be making a blessing on that. You can't. Halacha says you're not allowed to. So empty it out, rinse it out the cup, and refill it with fresh wine. That's no longer associated with negativity. Furthermore, says the Rebbe, or Rebbe Darkei Moshe, see a book called the Darkei Moshe, written by the Rabbi Meir Moshe Iselis, that rabbi I mentioned earlier, who put his Ashkenazi glosses in the code. He wrote another book called Darkei Moshe. Huva b'Shulchan Aruch Rabbeinu, and the Alter Rebbe in his code quotes this passage from the Darkei Moshe, from the Ramah, which reads, quote, Asher tez zayin hashvichos, the 16 pourings, hin keneged, they would correspond to Charbo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God's sword. The 16 pourings are God's sword. Malach hamamun hanakama, which this sword is God's angel appointed to vengeance. Okay, citation also. All right, so what do we have? This book called Pesach Movin tells you that the wine is so deeply associated with the plagues that you just described, they shouldn't even drink that wine anymore. Empty it out. And it's not as if we disagree with that. We agree that the 16 pourings are associated with God's wrath and anger. The Alter Rebbe puts it in his code, quoting from the Ashkenazi Darkei Moshe, that the 16 times you're pouring is connected to God's sword, which is his vengeance. So then, why are we still drinking the cup? Why are we still keeping this cup?
He was saying because it had to do with joy.
Exactly.
Left over.
Exactly. What's going on? So, is it not a negative wine?
Well, it's negative, but positive for the Yidden. Like, isn't it because
any cup that's associated with negativity, we don't drink from. That's the halacha, right? So why are we doing this? So says the Rebbe, to avoid this whole problem, you have to have the intention. What does the intention do? That the negativity of God's wrath and anger is not left in my cup. It's what I'm pouring out into the broken cup. That's where the anger is. So you have to have that intention. Because if you don't have that intention, you can mistakenly end up making that the wine in your cup is negative. And then you wouldn't be able to drink it further. You certainly wouldn't be able to make a blessing on it after. But because you're having in mind that the anger is coming out of my cup and going into the broken cup, so now, therefore, umasha nishar b'soich what's left behind in the cup, is wine of joy. Okay, the Rebbe doesn't say this. I'm adding that this would explain why we pour, not dip. Because if you dip, the wine is mixed. Yeah. So you have negative wine in your cup. And therefore, if you follow in that practice, empty your cup out, rinse it out, and put new water in. Put new wine in. But because we want, that was explaining for us, we want that the negative should not be in our cup. The negative should be out of our cup into the broken cup, which is klipa negativity. So don't dip, pour. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't say this clearly. And therefore, because you had that intention, that the negative is going out of your cup and not remaining in your cup, now your cup is left behind as all joyous. But it's specifically because you had that intention. And therefore, even though the Alter Rebbe does not usually give you Kabbalistic intentions, here he's giving you the Kabbalistic intention because it has halachic ramification. Because thanks to this intention that the negative is out of your cup, not in your cup, now you can keep on drinking from your cup. In fact, the cup that behind is joyous. Add more wine. And commentary from the Rebbe. Clear? What do you want to say? Can you say something?
Yeah. Like, what would be, why I understand what you're saying, but why do we do that over just pouring it out and being making sure that we don't have any of that negativity? Okay,
good question. Why, in other words, what I'm just explaining is both.
Intention, they could be doing something bad.
So you're right, which is why the Alter puts that intention in the siddur. Because if you miss the other Kabbalistic intentions, okay, you still did what you had to. Yeah. But in this case, you have to have that intention, which is why he puts it in. That's Rebbe's point. Because if you don't have that intention, you could be ruining it.
I'm thinking back, when I would do the siddurs and
we had no idea.
Me, do that, I was like, what am I doing? And
right.
Now we understand it.
Exactly.
We never did.
Now you understand what you're doing. That's why I'm sharing this, right? Every part of the Seder, you can do the same thing, by the way. Just so you know, you can do this in front of the Seder. Anyway, okay, but now we know at least the two tracks follow. If you're dipping, then the negativity could still be associated with the cup you have left behind. Therefore, empty it out, rinse it out, and start again. But if you're pouring out, and you're having this intention that the negative is going out, not remaining behind, what remains behind is joyous, and therefore continue to refill it. So why choose one track over the other? On a basic halachic level, I could say, because we don't want to waste wine. By doing it this way, you don't waste so much wine.
Was that why he even started that? Maybe, because
perhaps.
In those days, wine was very hard to
acquire. Either because of that, or because there's a halachic thing about not wasting, right? It's a mitzvah, we don't waste.
Right.
That could be. But I'd like to think that it's deeper than that. And I'll explain in a moment why doing it this way ends up, it's not just that the wine left behind is okay. But the way he says it is, will have become wine that causes joy. So it's like increased joy thanks to doing it this way.
Sounds like, yeah.
So let's see how that is. So when we unpack the intention, we'll hopefully understand why it is that the wine behind remains, becomes joy, a wine that causes joy. Not just, it's okay, we saved it from negativity because we poured the negativity out, but actually becomes wine that causes joy. So let's unpack the intention and see how that works. So let's go back to the English, read it, and we'll explain it as we go along. Okay, so everything I shared till now was the Rebbe speaking, and now Levi Nu speaking. This is my interpretation of this little passage. So if you have a better one, you're welcome to disagree. Okay. It's a disclaimer. Okay, have in mind that the cup symbolizes the aspect of Malchus. Of Malchut. Okay, what is Malchut?
Where are you reading now?
Back to the parentheses. I'm going back to the intention to unpack the intention itself. Have in mind that the cup symbolizes the aspect of Malchut. Okay, what is Malchut? Malchut, we know, is the last of the 10 sephiras. What is its character? Every sephira, every sphere, we'll choose that word, sphere, whatever you want to call it, has its character trait, its personality. Chesed is to give, Gvura is to restrain, Tiferes is compassionate, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what's Malchut's character? Literally take the word Malchut, which means sovereignty. Sorry?
To elevate?
Okay, we'll see. Malchut literally means sovereignty. Okay, I tell you someone is a king. What do you know about that person? He could be a stupid king. He could be a smart king. He could be a kind king. He could be an angry king. He could be an ineffective king. He could be an effective king. What do you know about him? Sorry?
A rich king.
He could be rich. He could be poor. Some kings could be poor. Let's say we don't know.
But a king is the absolute ruler.
The king is that's all we know. So all we know about the king is that he has the capacity to project his power over everybody else. That's all we know. What he's going to project, we'll find out later. Maybe he'll project kindness. Maybe he'll project anger. We don't know. But we do know that he's capable of projecting his power over everybody else. Right? So Malchut, therefore, is the character of projection, which is why Malchut is associated with speech, because his speech is the way I project. What am I going to project? Well, we'll find out. Hopefully, I'm going to project smart things and not stupid things. Hopefully, project kind things and not angry things. Right? It's just projection, which is why Malchut is recipient. It's a cup, because it doesn't have any personality. Its personality is just to project. What it's going to project, it first needs to receive. Malchut needs to receive like a cup. It first has to receive from Chachma, Bina, Dat, Chesed, Gvura, and once it receives from all the other personality traits that I have, then it could project. Right? So once I have something to say, then I can say it. Right? Our generation is a classic Malchut generation. Because in our generation, the most important thing is, everybody has a voice. What are you going to say? I don't know. We'll find out afterwards. But everybody has a voice. That's very much our generation. The previous generation is like, if you have nothing to say, stop talking. What do you like? That was the old way, right? And the new way is that you have to be heard. What you're going to say, we'll find out. You're not in a good mood, and what you're saying is gibberish. You have to be heard out, right? That's Malchut. You have to be heard. We have to express ourselves. What? We'll find out after. But we have to be heard. That's the Malchut personality. So it's projection. It's to communicate outward. And it does so by receiving from the other attributes above it. Right? And therefore, let's continue the intention, which contains an aspect of anger and indignation. If there's anger inside, then there's anger going to be projected outward in Malchut.
Where's the anger coming from? Just because one of the spheres?
Because, there's anger exists in this. Anger exists in the realm of existence. It exists. So if it exists, then it's going to be projected in Malchut also. But now the problem is I want to make sure it's projected in the right way to the right people. And not the wrong way to the wrong people. So how do I ensure that the projection of anger, Hashem's projection of anger, is actually projected in the right way? How do you do that? So continue the intention. By means of our faculty of Bina, through the understanding, we pour out that aspect of anger and indignation. So we end up directing the anger and indignation to the place we want to by using the power of Bina. Okay, how does that work? Okay, so let's use the model of human beings and where anger comes from. Someone walks up to Levi Nu and slaps him in the face. What's the first emotional reaction? Shock. An hour later, I'm angry. Why am I angry an hour from now? What happened in the last hour?
You're thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it. So now I'm thinking about how terrible this person was, how insulting it is. And now I start thinking about every other thing the person ever did to me. And now I'm boiling angry. So what really caused the anger? Not the external action, but my thinking of it, the bina, my understanding of it. But if I decide to think about it differently, I'm going to have the same reaction. Let's say I decide to think this person has such a low self-esteem that this person is going to feel better by slapping me. It doesn't mean I'm ever going to hang out with the guy ever again, because clearly the man's, a loose cannon. I don't want to be near people who slap. But angry at him? Not necessarily. Or if I think even deeper, whatever happens in the world is Hashem wanted me, so it's true he's wrong for slapping me, but Hashem obviously wanted me to get a slap. It's like I did that meditation. So again, I'm not going to hang out with this person. That would be stupid. But anger? I don't have to be angry necessarily. Right? So by using Bina, then I can redirect anger to where it has to be, or completely mitigate it. Right? So therefore, goes the meditation. By means of our faculty of Bina, understanding, we pour out the aspect of anger and indignation, which is there in Malchut, because it exists, and it's going to be projected. But I want it to be projected at Klippa. So if I use Bina to say, where anger belongs? In the broken cursed vessel, by spilling from the wine in the cup into a broken dish, which represents Klippa. By using Bina. Okay, so now what happens to the wine that's left behind? What happens when I redirect anger in the proper direction?
So you've taken it all out, and what's left behind should be the joy.
Exactly. It's not just regular joy. It's great. It's
pure joy.
Exactly.
Because everything else was taken out.
Exactly right. Okay. Wine that causes joy. So usually when a person's angry, everything gets clouded. Right? So let's say after that hour when I'm thinking about how terrible this guy is and why I'm so angry, I talk to someone who I genuinely care about, and I can barely listen to what they're saying, and I'm angry. What are you angry with this person for? This person didn't hit you. It's your best friend. Why are you angry? Because the anger hasn't been properly directed, so it clouds everything.
Correct.
Right? So if I don't use the Bina to take the anger from Malchut and project it in the right direction, then everything gets clouded with anger, and I can't even find the joy anywhere.
Wow.
But the moment I use the Bina to take anger and redirect it through Malchut, project it to the right way, what's left behind causes the greatest joy, because I'm free of that stupid anger. I got rid of it. I put it where it's supposed to go. I redirected it to the negative. I'm angry at Klippa. I'm angry that there's evil in the world. Great. And everything else is perfectly joyous. And now the cup that's left behind is not just an okay cup. It's the wine that causes joy. And maybe that's why better do this version. Why the Alter Rebbe chooses to say pour out rather than do the dipping. Because like this, if you dip and you empty it out and refill, you're just starting from fresh. But if you do this whole meditation where you're getting rid of anger, and then what's left behind is pure, clean, it's not just regular wine. Now it's wine that causes joy. So refill it, and that's going to be your cup that you're going to make the next bracha on.
What number cup is it?
It's number 2. It's towards the end of cup number 2.
So I really like that. But
So very cool. It's saying it's, by the way, just to make the point again.
No, the cup that we're going to drink is cup number 3.
This is cup number 2. It's towards.
Oh, it's one we drink and then
One we drink,
two
that's right.
we go for Magid.
And this is during Magid.
Okay.
Correct. So 1 is Kiddush, 2 is at the end of Magid, and this happens during Magid, towards the end of Magid.
And then when we refill it, it's to drink.
It's to drink the second cup.
So it's an extra special cup. It has
Exactly
extra joy.
right.
Now we have the.
Exactly right.
So I'm taking
Exactly.
everything that you're saying, and I'm saying you're very right. But what if? I'm sorry, Sephardic mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're a bit different.
Don't worry.
So what if we spill everything, then we rinse, so that I could have pure joy in the new cup of wine too.
So like
it's
I said.
the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because I've
Yeah,
taken it all out, so that
Right.
my next cup is also just pure joy.
So that's a good question. So like I said before, if there was a Sephardic rabbi here, you might give the exact same class and explain the details of why they're specifically dipping and not pouring. That could happen also and be completely legit. Sorry?
We don't dip.
Whatever. Whoever it was that
Right.
did that
Right.
would be able to give you the whole explanation why that's the right way. And it would have been completely legitimate. Having said that, I think a lady making a good point, which is there's the work that goes involved in getting rid of the anger and moving it the right direction. And you don't want to start fresh at that point. You want to take all that work and
Elevate it.
climb higher. Right? Because if you just did all that work to pure your thinking to make it all joyous because you redirected anger in a better way. So you want to keep that. You don't want to start over.
Right.
Anyway, perhaps. But again, if someone else giving a share for the other custom, it would be the same. Just as deep and beautiful. Okay, so this is just literally, as you saw, it's one instruction in the Haggadah, often overlooked, because it's in parentheses, have in mind, whatever. And the Rebbe gives us a little comment to give us a halachic explanation for why it's necessary, because you don't want to be left with a cup of negativity. You want to be left with a cup of joy. And as we just heard, it's not just regular joy, it's a redoubled joy. We're going through the whole process of using Bina, using our understanding to redirect Malchus anger in a place that's healthy and not clouding the rest of everything else in our life. So one little insight that you can take to your Seder and hopefully share with...
Can I keep this?
You
or do
can,
want to
very welcome to keep it, yeah.
Is it Knisa?
Yes, it would be Knesset, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have to bring it on Sunday.
Okay. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Happy and kosher Pesach. And if there are other questions, you're welcome to text me or whatever.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question.
Sure.